everything must start with a profitable product. If you don't have a profitable product, you don't have a real business. I remember meeting with a serial entrepreneur and we sat down, this is probably 2016, 2017. And he tried telling me how red is the new black and how it's better to lose money versus to be making money. It's better to be in the red versus being a profitable business because of scaling purposes. And it never made sense to me. And to this day, it makes even less sense to me than it did back then.
Yeah.
And I think we've been so tricked into thinking just about scaling and about celebrating things that really actually don't contribute to being a successful business.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Travis Makes Friends podcast. Today, I am making friends with Adam Rosen. Adam, what's up, dude? Welcome to the show.
Travis, I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be here.
So the king of cold email, that's what I hear anyway. That's what I hear from the interwebs. They tell me that you do a lot of cold email and you do it for pretty big companies. We're not talking about mom and pops here. We're talking like minimum 100 employees, but you work directly with their sales and marketing team and help them with a cold email outreach strategy. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess if there was something to be a king of, I never thought it'd be cold email, but that's better than nothing, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? You get a kingdom at least. You know what I mean? Like it may not be the kingdom you would have picked as a 14-year-old or something, but it's a kingdom nonetheless, bro. So congrats on that.
Yeah, I'll take it. So yeah, we do cold email outreach for startups to even now some Fortune 500s we're working with to help them with their outbound to help drive more sales appointments.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go back in time here, bro, because something that probably my listeners get sick of hearing me say, but I always find it fascinating on how you got to this point. Cause like I say a lot, career counselors don't often help you end up where, on this entrepreneurial path. So something along the way probably went wrong, which led to a lot of things going right. So let's go back to that point in time. Let's say 15, 16-year-old Adam. Talk to me about what you had going on at the time. Where were you? What was life like?
Yeah, for me, I've always loved sports. So I was a sport management major in college, and I did a few internships, one with the Philadelphia Phillies, one with the a minor league baseball team where I grew up in New York. And that's kind of when I realized that I like sports, but I didn't love it enough in order to work my way through getting to what I would need to go through in order to get to where I wanted to go when it came to sports. So anyway, I was lucky enough to take a class on entrepreneurship. And I honestly, probably leading up to that point, I didn't even know what the word entrepreneurship even meant. And in that class, the professor and I, we hit it off. She was starting an entrepreneurship program to help support entrepreneurs at my school. I ended up doing that as my full-time internship my senior year of college. They offered me a one-year MBA program to continue running that program. And it was about 3 weeks before I graduated with that one-year MBA that I ended up starting my first company. And now I've been an entrepreneur for, 11, 12 years at this point, and I've never held like a true corporate job.
What was your first company?
So I had a tech startup, had it for about 5 years, sold it in 2019. It was a college recruiting startup. So we built a platform of about 100,000 student organizations at colleges and universities all across the US. And then we would sell into brands like Bank of America, Amazon, Apple, Goldman, Disney that wanted to recruit those students and also to get data on those students. So they would also host a lot of surveys through our platform too, to get a sense of Gen Z and the future of work.
Was that the goal of the platform when you launched it?
Yeah, the goal was like, hey, there's a special group of students within every campus. They tend to live in these student organizations, whether it's like a robotics club or a business club, engineering club, you name it. They're the types of students that are going above and beyond outside the classroom. We knew that companies wanted to get to those students. So we said, hey, what if we build this platform that would connect companies and student organizations? So we wanted to help out what we thought was the most passionate groups of students within a campus and then help corporations get connected to those folks in an easier way.
What was the exit like for you?
It was not the exit that anyone dreams of when they start a business. So that's one thing I always like to be very clear on, because I feel like the entrepreneurship world is so over glamorized, where a lot of times we can believe all the BS that exists out there with these overnight successes. And I was part of that too. Like when I started that company, my mindset was legitimately like, look, this is billionaire or bust, IPO or bust. Like that was my mindset as a 22-year-old bright-eyed, bushy-tailed entrepreneur, just starting my first company. But it was the type of thing where we wanted to get as much money back for our investors as we could. We saw this thing through for 5 years, and we wanted to make sure that the business can continue running post us. So it was not some glamorous acquisition that had me living on the beach with a mimosa in my hand as a retired 27-year-old. Although I did move to Hawaii when I was selling the company, it was not as a retired 27-year-old, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah, yeah. So you did raise money though for the start of the company.
Yeah, we raised a little bit of cash.
Okay. Was that
Yeah, so
traditional like VCs, angels?
Angels, we had one VC that cut us basically a check at one point just to keep tabs on us, so that if they
Okay,
did want to cut a bigger check, they would already have the inside access to it. But yeah, it was
gotcha.
mainly angels.
Okay, so kind of seed funding, and then that's all you needed to be able to grow it and exit.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't raise any big capital. I think at the end of the day, we raised probably $750,000 in that range.
What are your thoughts on raising capital for beginner entrepreneurs?
If you need it, and you absolutely need it for your business, and your goals are in alignment with what capital would require to get there, go for it. For me, I currently run a bootstrap company, and I absolutely love having a bootstrap company right now. I'm sure there will be one time in maybe the not too distant future where a business I'll start or buy will require capital. But right now, I love being a bootstrap company. And I think there's too many people that approach business thinking that that's the end goal, is I just need to raise capital. And I think
Yeah.
most businesses actually should not raise capital.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree. It's a raising capital has become like the goal, and then after you raise capital and close the round, you start realizing that like, oh, that's just day one. Like the day you raise capital is like the next day is that's day one. It's not we did what we set out to do. It's like now you have to deploy capital, and then you have this constant tension of like, should we raise more? Do we over raise? Did we under raise? Are we going to head into a down round? Do we need bridge capital? And you inflate your expenses beyond what your income is. Your burn is extremely high. Then you get sucked into the world of continuing to raise capital because you have to, because if you don't, your doors are closed or you're going to have to lay off 80% of your workforce. So yeah, it's kind of been glamorized over the last couple of decades, but I think after the kind of this last bubble, there was I felt like a big bubble like 2021, 2022, where just like insane volume of capital deployed during those time periods, and then so many companies just going bust that and these are massive companies too, not companies that had 750 grand in seed capital that went out of business, or they raised a $2 million pre-seed or whatever. It's like, no, we're talking about companies that had tens of millions of dollars, some of them hundreds of millions in venture capital or private equity dollars that have been injected into the companies, and the companies just going belly up because they weren't actually strong business models. They were just really good at raising capital. And I think that now there's been a big crunch on all of that, especially now the cost of capital is higher and things like that. So there's been a couple of things like that on a macroeconomic scale that's affected it. But also I think that people are just tired of losing money hand over fist. And I think I honestly, I hope for the entrepreneurship community that the capital dries up a little bit more, because it forces you to flex that entrepreneurial muscle, which is really just flexibility, the ability to pivot on a dime, change on a dime. And you just can't do that after you raise a bunch of capital and have a bunch of employees. It's like you set your ship in this, to head in this certain direction for this particular destination, and then you hire all these people to be crew on the ship, and then you're halfway in the middle of the ocean, realize you're headed to the wrong place, and these people aren't on board to go to the new destination. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, I'm with you, man. I think that especially for the majority of entrepreneurs, that it probably should be, let's see how or if we could potentially do this bootstrapped or with a small amount of capital first, and then maybe we might need to go raise some, because some companies might require it. These kind of economies of scale software type companies are going to require you to go negative for a long time, and you do need capital to withstand that. But yeah, I think it was overhyped for a little bit.
Yeah, and you don't appreciate the value of a dollar. Like,
Right.
I look back now when we raised, like, our first round, we raised $250,000, and you don't really appreciate even just the expenses that are going out, especially when you're an early founder. I think it's really important to be bootstrapped and to understand the value of a dollar. Like, for me, one of my big things is always around profitability. Everything must start with a profitable product. If you don't have a profitable product, you don't have a real business.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in the startup world, especially in the tech startup world, like, I remember meeting with a serial entrepreneur, and we sat down, this is probably 2016, 2017. And he tried telling me how red is the new black. and how it's better to lose money versus to be making money. It's better to be in the red versus being a profitable business because of scaling purposes. And it never made sense to me. And to this day, it makes even less sense to me than it did back then.
Yeah.
And I think we've been so tricked into thinking just about scaling and about celebrating things that really actually don't contribute to being a successful business, like
Right.
raising capital. Also, like, how many employees do you have? Like in the tech startup world, I feel like a lot of the founders I meet with, those would be the first two questions they would ask.
Yeah. Yep.
How much money did you raise and how many employees do you have? And
Yep.
it's like, now I think about, I am so happy that I didn't raise a lot of money or raise any money for this business. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we have a small team. We're nimble,
Yeah.
we're agile, we're efficient, versus some companies, they overspend so much in human capital.
Yeah.
And it doesn't lead necessarily to a healthy, sustainable business.
Yeah. I mean, really the opposite of that. The bloat is egregious in some of the, I mean, just evidenced regardless of what you think about him politically, like from somebody like Elon Musk to come in and buy a company like Twitter and then eliminate what 75 to 80% of the workforce in like a week. And then like you would think that the company would just go belly up. Like 80% of the workforce is gone. And this is a multi-billion-dollar organization, like multi-deca-billion-dollar organization. And like you lay off that many people and then it still operates completely normally. And like, you know, like not really any big like interruptions of service or anything like that. Why were there so many people employed there? The company was losing money. It's not like they were just enjoying their profits so much that they wanted to continue investing in human capital. It was like, you're losing money all the time and you still have this much bloat. Like, get rid of it, which is exactly what Elon did as soon as he got in there. And I don't know exactly what the state of the company is anymore, but my point is that like these are the companies that all of these other entrepreneurs are kind of holding on this pedestal, right? Like a Snapchat that's been around for how long? Everybody knows about it. It's installed on hundreds of millions of devices, but it's never been profitable, ever. It's never actually made money. That's mind blowing. You know what I mean? But they look at that example and they go like, see, look at Snapchat. And it's like, you're talking about a 1 in what, 10,000 company, maybe. And it's the odds of you getting to this type of a evaluation or this type of demand with your user base are so insanely low. It's ridiculous to build your entire model around that being the only goal that you actually care about. Versus like building a sustainable company with sustainable growth, with employees who feel fulfilled, get paid well, and then leaves profit left over in the bank account for you, your co-founders, your investors, or whoever else. Yeah, it's almost like we're idolizing the wrong companies in that sense.
Yeah, a lot of it is based on like what is sexy. Like I remember my previous business, there would be so many times people would be like, oh my God, what a brilliant idea. Or that's such a genius concept and all this stuff. And in the back of my head, what I'm thinking is, yes, it is a good idea. It is an interesting concept. It should exist. However, the market is rejecting it to a level, because if it really was that brilliant, if it really was that genius, if it really was that great of an idea, and sure, the execution might just not have been there to the level that we needed to in order to become a more successful company than we ended up being. But the financial numbers didn't make sense. The model didn't fully make sense. It wasn't actually, versus today, you know, my company's name is literally Email Outreach Company.
Yeah.
Probably the most vanilla name you can have. And that was purposeful. My co-founder and I were thinking about the name of this company. We had all these like creative, goofy names. And finally we were like, let's just call it what it is. Email Outreach, and we're a company. Boom, done, simple. And it's like very few people I speak to are like, oh my God, no one actually ever says what a genius concept or how brilliant it is. But I don't care, because I know on the back end, number one, it works for our customers. And because it works for our customers and because the unit economics work for us, it's a healthy business. But I think entrepreneurs need to chase less of the sexy, innovative type of business and more of a business that's actually going to work.
How do you test your business models when you're coming up with this? Like when you're looking at this, when you're looking at this particular business for email outreach, or you're looking at any other potential businesses that you want to get into, and you go like, hey, this is a pretty good idea. How do you start looking at those models and figuring out whether or not it's a viable path forward?
With this business in particular, like when I sold my first company, I started to do a lot of work with different startups. And one of those startups I was advising just said like, hey man, we're struggling to get meetings on the books. Can you help? And there's a lot of things we did wrong in my previous startup, but the one thing we always did very well was getting the biggest brands in the world as customers. And how we got just about all of them as customers was through cold email.
Hmm.
So when that CEO I was working with said to meet with their head of sales, I was asking her questions around what they're doing with their cold email, and it was very obvious what they were not doing. So at that point, I just called up my co-founder, my previous startup. I said, "Hey man, I think we can help these guys out. Let's build something for them." So I called up their CEO. I told him, let's put something together for you guys. He was open to it. And then truthfully, going back to your question, Travis, like we had no idea what to charge. We had no idea. We were like, hey, what do you think about $500 a month and 30% commission on any sales you bring in from us? And he was like, yeah, sounds good. Let's do it. And then that built up to like our next customer paid us $1,000 a month plus commission. And now, we charge us a set fee. But we had no idea, but we said the market's going to decide and going to tell us what we should be charging. And then the market also is going to tell us, is this even a business worth pursuing? For the first 9 months, intentionally, we didn't add a single customer other than our first 3 beta customers. That was it. And we said, if they're going to renew month after month, if they're getting value, if they're going to start paying us more money because we're providing a good amount of value for them, then let's bring on new customers. But until that happens, we're not going to bring on a single new customer. And, that's exactly what happened. And now we're 3+ years in.
And that was just you and your co-founder at the very beginning?
Yeah, it was me literally responding to every email, writing every template, building out every system and process. And it was me just totally in the weeds and my co-founder as well on his side of the house for the first 9 months or a year until we started making hires. And now we have a whole team where I don't touch a single thing on the inside anymore.
I'm curious, since you now are running an agency essentially, and then you before had a software tech company startup, and you started when you were young, never had a corporate job. What would you recommend as a first path forward for young entrepreneurs listening to this? Like what type of business, industry specific, tech versus agency, online versus offline, brick and mortar versus, cloud-based? What would you suggest?
Probably the bad answer, but the reality is whatever that individual can do to provide value to a customer. If you're an incredibly intelligent tech person and you want to build out a technology, do that. If you're someone who's more of a Shopify person, if you know a lot about Shopify or Amazon, go do that. If you are someone who has an expertise around even email marketing and you want to build an agency around that, do that. But should be built around your unique skill set. And if you can't provide value to your customer, you got nothing. So I don't think it's one specific type of business. I don't think it's one specific type of industry. I think it's what value can you provide to the market? Get insanely good at that. Be willing to learn, listen to the market, and adjust based on what the market's telling you. And then do everything you can to get as many high quality customers and serve them as possible.
How much did you know about email marketing when you started the business?
My current business?
Yeah.
A good amount, but nothing now I think nothing, but back then a lot more than the average person, because cold email was really what it's how we actually found my first investor was through cold email.
Okay.
It was how we found the company that ended up acquiring mine. Like I said, it was how we got almost every customer of ours, Amazon, Apple, Goldman, Disney, MasterCard. We got as a client from cold emailing. Now their former CEO, Ajay Banga, who got on multiple phone calls with us all through cold email. It was how we got big partnerships. Like cold email was really like the lifeline of everything we did at my previous tech startup. So we knew we were very good at it. We knew it probably better than 95% of the people out there, but the cold email world has changed a ton, especially in the last year, where at this point, like if you're a novice or if you're an amateur with it, you're just not going to get results anymore. So the level of expertise and knowledge that we have today in halfway through 2024 versus when we started the company in mid 2021 is night and day.
What do you guys do differently? Like, what are people doing wrong when it comes to cold email outreach? Like for you to be able to get in touch with people like that, and not even really talking about booking appointments on a sales calendar right now. Like I'm more asking specifically about these kind of one-off, high profile, extremely busy type CEOs, CFOs, COOs type people. How do you get in touch with those people in their inbox and actually write something that stands out enough for them to not only see it and read it, but also respond and jump on a call?
A lot of people tend to be surprised when they hear this, but we found it's actually easier in some ways if the value is there to get meetings with the C-suite of some of the best companies in the world. So for example, one of our customers who we love, it's the best private aviation company in the world. They're called Magellan Jets, phenomenal company. And when we first started working with them, I remember meeting with their head of marketing, and he was a little hesitant. He's like, is this really going to work for my type of customer? Because their customer, as you can imagine, is like the top C-suite of the top C-suite, because they're selling private aviation services.
Yeah.
And I was a little cautiously optimistic, because we have booked meetings with, the Ajay Bangas of the world, and many other CEO types of very large companies. But could we do it at scale for this company? And we have done it at scale. They've actually been one of our most successful customers, where last month we booked over 20 meetings for them with like the top C-suite, again, of the top C-suite. So what makes us different, going back to your question, Travis, is for anyone who's listening here, who's doing any type of mass outreach, which mass outreach at this point, you could think about sending 30 or more emails in a day. That's considered mass outreach now. If you're sending any more than 20 emails per inbox per day, you're most likely going into spam, and you're going to put your domain at risk of being blacklisted. So for example, like a year ago, before all these changes took place, we used to create one domain we would send from and a few email accounts that we would send from, and that was good enough. And there were times we could send a few thousand emails a day per inbox. Now, because of all the changes, like we have one customer, our largest customer, we have over 1,000 inboxes that we manage for them that we're sending from, because you can only send about 20 emails per inbox per day, because that threshold has gotten so low.
Wow.
So that's one simple thing. Two, with copy, a lot of us have gotten very lazy when it comes to AI. We just go into GPT or Claude or whatever. We say, write me a cold email for this type of buyer. This is my company, whatever. That's just not going to get you results. One, because you're probably going to go into spam. If you're not doing things like spin tax, randomizing the copy, and you send a mass email, you're most likely going into spam. But also there's tools out there like a clay.com, for example, which is able to send highly, highly, highly personalized emails at scale, where it looks like I just did 30 minutes of research on your website, then wrote a highly personalized email to you, and you're going to think it's a one-to-one email. And also, by the way, it's probably going to go through spam and it's the inbox because of how personal that it looks. So those are just like two basic things that the average person probably is not doing when it comes to cold emailing, and is probably why they're not getting great results through it either.
You said clay.com?
Yep, clay.com.
Like CLAY?
Exactly. Yep.
Huh. Wow. Interesting. Okay. So what do we not know about email marketing? Like what? It's 2024, Adam. I don't know if you know this, but email marketing's dead. It's been dead for so long, right?
I always tell people, I'm like, look, cold email, you're right. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It does not work if you don't know what you're doing. But the same goes for any marketing media.
Literally anything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like there's people that are killing it on Facebook, doing Facebook ads. And there's people that are spending a bunch of money and getting nothing.
Yeah.
There's people, same thing on TikTok, Snapchat, a billboard in New York City. It doesn't matter. If you're good at what you do, and when it comes to marketing, you're probably gonna get results. If you don't, you're probably not going to get results. And for us, like I always call like the golden ages of email is probably like, it went up to about last year, where it was relatively easy to get results through cold email as long as you followed the basics.
Yeah.
Now that's not the case anymore. But for us, our last 30 months or our last 90 days, we've gotten more meetings per month per customer than we ever have before when we started the company. So cold email does still work. It can still work better than ever, but you have to do A through Z right. Because if you don't, you just don't stand a chance of getting results anymore, and you might as well not even do it.
In your agency, are you guys doing any sales at all, or just like we email, we book appointments, that's it?
Yeah, we get our customers on the call and then they take it from there.
Yeah. How much work needs to be done with the company itself, like before you can come up with a like really highly targeted list of people fits a specific, customer profile or whatever?
Well, when we get started with our customers, it's an onboarding call, which is 30 minutes to an hour. There's a 5-minute onboarding form they fill out. From there, that'll help us get started. And then some companies are further along than other companies. Like some companies know their ICP, their ideal customer profile, more than others do. But from there, it's really just a test and iterate. testing on the messaging, testing on the ICP and who we're reaching out to, and then of course making tweaks. But to get things set up, we have a pretty good grip on how to write good copy for a lot of different companies. So it really doesn't take a lot of time, at least from our customer standpoint, to help us put it together.
If you were right now, state of 2024, capital drying up, weird economy, people don't have as much, dry powder laying around. You're a young person. Are you still going to start a business, or do you think that it might be prudent to go find a flourishing business even in these times and learn some skills that might benefit you before you go out and just start your own thing?
Well, I think it goes back to just who are you? Like, what's your self-awareness level? Like, I think one thing I used to believe is that everybody should be an entrepreneur. That was always my thing. Like, I remember in college when I was doing that entrepreneur program, I was like, everybody should be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I couldn't disagree with my old self any more than I do today, because not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur, just like not everyone's meant to work, in corporate or whatever the situation is like. And that's good. Like, if everybody was an entrepreneur, we'd be in a lot of trouble. Just like
good
if
luck
no one
hiring,
was
right?
Exactly. So it's really just self-awareness. And if you are someone who really is like, I am an entrepreneur, I believe this, but I also know it's going to take time to make money and I need to pay the bills. Well, then are you willing to put in the extra work where you're going to be working two jobs? Are you cool, I don't know, doing a 9 to 5 somewhere else to make some money, or 8 to 6 or whatever the hours are, and then hustling either early in the morning or later at night or on the weekends to help make your entrepreneurial dream come true? Like, if you want it bad enough, that's what you'll have to do, especially in the early stages.
Where do you think that, like, do you think that this entrepreneurship trend is going to die down, or do you think it's going to continue rising up?
I think part of it is, where is America going? I think that's a reality, at least in America, because I know I do a lot of traveling. I run my business as a traveling entrepreneur. So I spend a lot of time in a lot of places like Italy or throughout Europe is primarily where I spend my time outside the US. And I remember I was in Italy in a place called Umbria, Assisi, Italy, this past spring. I was there for about 2 months. And the property manager of the Airbnb I was staying at, really sharp, young guy, late 20s. And I ended up hanging out with him and his buddy a lot. And these are like people that just have such a desire to be an entrepreneur. They love it. They were just asking me tons and tons of questions about building my business or previous businesses, all this stuff. And then the biggest challenge for them, though, is their government, according to them, makes it really difficult to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't always incentivize them to be an entrepreneur, whether it's through regulation, taxes, et cetera. And so I think about people like them, and I'm like, man, if he was in America, he is like the guy that would be the golden entrepreneur. He loves to work. He's, wants to provide value, wants to provide a great service, all that stuff. So I think part of it does depend on, does America keep its entrepreneurial belief and roots and foundation? And not though, I don't think entrepreneurship is going anywhere in American culture. I think enough of us see the amazing success stories that inspire so many of us, where I don't think it's going anywhere. But I think it does depend on where the country goes and if we still want to celebrate entrepreneurship.
How much do you think your entrepreneurial venture, your business, your company, I'll be careful I word this question. How much do you think it needs to be driven by purpose or passion versus finding a problem and solving it in the market?
Old me would have said it has to be driven by passion and a purpose. And I still agree with that. But I think sometimes we confuse passion with what we are doing versus passion in terms of where we are going. And what I mean by that is, like, with my first startup, I was passionate, and maybe I wasn't passionate now looking back on it, but I loved the idea of supporting these young people within a college campus that are going above and beyond. And we gave away $300,000 to these student groups to celebrate them and to help them build their initiatives. And it was all in this dream of building this business that, again, I thought I would do forever. They're being very, very naive. Today, I don't think you're going to find anybody who's passionate about cold email. And if you do, they're probably a liar. Like, nobody's passionate about cold email.
Yeah.
But for me, why I love it is one, the idea of cold email is just connecting person A to person B. And that's something that I do love. That is something that I am passionate about, is I love connecting person A to person B. That's the whole goal of cold email. But I'm also someone who loves to grow. I love to get to see where the best version of myself is. And I see this as an anchor to do it. And I love to build a successful business, which includes providing value to my customers. So you need to be in love with that process. You need to be in love with that journey. You need to be in love with that person that you hope to become through it. But I don't think you need to be fighting to start something that you are passionate about. Like, just because you love flowers doesn't mean you should start a flower business. Just
Yeah.
because you love, playing cards doesn't mean you need to create a business around playing cards. Like, you don't need to build a business around something you're passionate about. And I think sometimes young people today are so stressed out because they're either saying, I don't know what I'm passionate about, or I can't make money with something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think it's steering a lot of people in the wrong direction.
Yeah. It's like that phrase, that like something about the most difficult thing isn't doing what you want, it's knowing what you want. And I think that's kind of sums up a lot of young people. And I put myself in that category a lot of times too, is like, what do I want? Like, where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing with my time? And they're kind of, luxury problems to have, because a lot of other people are just asking themselves how they're going to pay their bills next month, or this month. So I understand it's kind of a first world problem type of a thing. And like I said, a luxury problem, but it's still a problem nonetheless. And something to be thinking about, constantly is, and that's something that I just have on my mind a lot, is like, do I really care about this thing? But because here's the thing, man, because entrepreneurship's tough, so it's hard to imagine myself pushing through the the sludge, you know what I mean? Like the bottom of the trench type work that you have to do when you're starting a business, especially for bootstrapping. Like, you just got to do that type of stuff. And it's difficult for me to imagine myself pushing through those things and overcoming obstacles and breaking down walls and those types and that type of a thing, when I don't really genuinely care about the outcome, care about the problem I'm solving, care about the end user and their experience with the problem that we're solving. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be something there that you actually give a shit about in order to be able to continue working on the vision, or furthering the mission, or being willing to pivot a year and a half in when you realize that the original mission isn't exactly the mission that's going to be accepted by the market. Or maybe, like you said before, maybe it is accepted and maybe it is viable, but the business model itself doesn't pencil out and the numbers don't work. And now you got to go back to the drawing board. It's like, well, if you're in it for the wrong reasons from the beginning, then when that type of stuff happens, you're just going to throw in the towel. So if there's a connection to some sort of like a deeper reason, whether that's like your personal development, whether that's just providing for your family, solving a key problem in an area that you wanted solved, there's got to be like I guess an anchoring to some sort of something that means something to you, at the end of the day, so you can push through some of those difficult times, because they will come. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, you're spot on. But like, if you think about, and that same goes for anything. Like, let's say you want to get in better shape and you're not really that into maybe the health that'll be on the other end of it, or the physique that you'll have by the end of it, or the feeling you'll have at the end of it, then odds are you're going to stop working out, especially at the level you need to. Same with how you eat. Same with if you have a bad habit, like let's say you smoke cigarettes and you want to stop smoking cigarettes, but you don't care about what's on the other end of that bad enough, you're probably going to continue that bad habit. So the same goes for anything in life. And I remember even just with my first startup, because we used to work out of WeWork, a big co-working space.
Okay.
And so we were always surrounded by different entrepreneurs. And there were so many entrepreneurs and good-hearted people who started for good intentions, who I would see for 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, and then they would fade off. And then we would find out they took another job. And to your point, Travis, was probably because they didn't want it bad enough. So they weren't willing to go through all the hurdles and all the mud in order to get to the other end. Just like I was with sports. Like, I was like, dude, I'm working for free. I'm
Yeah.
driving 45 minutes. On game days, I'm working here 12, 13 hours. You're not paying me a cent.
Right.
And when I take a hot dog, you're saying I got to give you $1.50 for this hot dog. Like
Right.
I don't think I'm willing to do this for the next 15 years in order to get to where I want to go in sports. There's got to be another option for me. And
Yeah.
that's when I found entrepreneurship. And the more I'd hear about it and learn about it, I'm like, oh, this sounds like something I would love doing. Like the risk associated with it, the thought of building, the thought that anything could be possible,
Yeah.
even if it's just a 1 in 1 million chance, like it actually is possible. That's what always attracted me to it. But even when I was starting my first company, it's like you have no idea if you actually are going to go through all the crap you got to go through in order to get there. You have no idea. And like for me, that first business was in a lot of ways a failure. People be like, wow, you paid yourself that much money for those years. You worked that many hours, because I was pretty much a 7 days a week guy in the office. Like it was anyone in that WeWork knew me as like he was always in the office. And the amount of money I made from it was not much, if anything. So a lot of ways it was a failure. But what I taught myself is, okay, shit, no matter what, health being most important, health aside, like when it comes to business, I can make it through it. And nothing I'm going to do after this when it comes to business is going to be worse than this. I'm not going to have to work any harder. I'm not going to fail any harder. And if I do, that's okay. I've already been through it. I already have the calluses to show me I can do this again if I need to. So, but you don't know that. You don't know if you have the chops for entrepreneurship or whatever it is until you actually go through it, because it's so easy for us to sit in the sideline and say, oh man, I could be that Olympic athlete, or I could be that great entrepreneur, or I could be that great musician or whatever.
Right.
But in order to become anything great in life, you got to go through a bunch of crap. And it's just, are you willing to go through the crap in order to get there? And you only know that by going through it.
Yeah, that's a question. I don't know if you know Mark Manson. I like his writing a lot, but he's the author of Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And there's one question that he asks a lot, which is, what's the shit sandwich that you want to eat, or that the shit sandwich that you don't mind eating? I think is kind of the way that he phrases it, because it's like whatever you choose, whatever path you go down, even if it is not entrepreneurship, it's corporate, and you want to get the promotion, and then the next promotion, and the next promotion, the next promotion, or you want to go into politics, or you want to go into comedy, or you want to be a podcaster or entrepreneur, like any path that you choose, if you want to be any or have any sort of outsized version of success, a better than average outcome, you're going to have to eat some shit sandwiches in the meantime. So which one are you most likely to sit down and eat? Because that's probably the path that you need to be going down, is which one, like they all require work that's not going to be fun. They all require something of you that's less than ideal. So which one of those paths is worth it to you to sit down and eat that sandwich every once in a while? And yeah, the crazy thing about the entrepreneurship path, and which is why entrepreneurs tend to be crazier people, is that the struggle is always guaranteed, but the success is not guaranteed. Whereas like, at least if you're in a corporate settings, like, yeah, you might hate your job, but at least you get a paycheck. You know what I mean? Like you show up and you do the work, regardless of if you're like having fun doing it or not having fun doing it. Like the risk is at least a little bit less than entrepreneurship, because you didn't put any money up for it. And the time that you're using to do that thing that you don't like doing, you're getting a paycheck for. So it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's a job. It's just a job. And but it pays the bills or whatever. It's like, well, entrepreneurship doesn't pay the bills unless you go out and make it pay the bills. But obviously the upside is that it might pay the bills for the rest of your life if it goes really well. So, you gotta kind of deal with the good and deal with the bad along the way. And it's going to be that way in whatever path that you go down. But I think entrepreneurship just tends to be like like a magnifying glass on both ends, on the success side and on the failure side, because there's nothing worse than putting your all into something and then watching it burn in front of you.
Oh, it's true. That was always and I was so grateful, and I still am. And I have the same co-founder from that business too, working with me today. But I'm like, man, if I didn't have you going through this, because there was a lot of stuff you can't tell anyone else.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to worry your parents. You don't want to, you're not going to tell your friends and stuff. Like most people don't know how bad it can actually be at times. And I'm not saying this to feel bad for me or anybody else. Like it's you are knowingly putting yourself in this situation, but it's just the reality that I think people should be aware of. And there's a reason people say if anyone knew the journey you'd have to take to be an entrepreneur, nobody would actually be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Right.
Like I think about like there was months, like 3 or 4 months where my co-founder and I, we couldn't pay ourselves, but we still
Yeah.
had to pay our team.
Yep.
And, an employee would come into the office and they would maybe start complaining or crying about something that's going on in their home life. And they have no idea. It's like, I'm eating cereal and peanut butter for dinner because I'm not paying myself and
Yeah.
I'm paying you. And that's my responsibility as a business owner, of course. But, it's like my credit card debt is maxed out. I'm in a ton of student loan debt. I got negative $300 in my checking account. And I got to show up to work every day,
Yeah.
bring a confidence so that my team doesn't get worried, and make sure that this big sales meeting I'm on or investor meeting or whatever it might be, that I'm bringing my A game, because I can't let any of that other stuff that's going on in my life negatively affect me doing the best job possible.
Yep.
And that's why it's like, as long as you can love the process of learning when you're starting a business, and of course you have to love your customer. I think you really have to love and want to serve that customer, because you're always going to have to deal with crap when you have customers, but you got to love what and want to actually serve them.
Yeah.
As long as you do that, you don't have to, in my opinion, be passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
You need to love the process of learning it and becoming an expert at it, but you don't have to, again, start a flower business just because you are passionate about every flower that exists in the world. If you can and you can make money on it, phenomenal, but you don't have to obsess over only creating a business over what you are exactly passionate about.
Yeah, I think people kind of conflate like the creator business model versus like regular business. You know what I mean? Because I think if you're going to be a creator, you got to be passionate. You got to have some sort of passion or at least curiosity in order to create like if you're going to start a YouTube channel and you're passionate about flowers, then you should probably start it about flowers, because like that's going to be your side gig for a long time, and you're just going to have to put a lot of videos about flowers. So if you don't have some sort of curiosity or some sort of passion about that thing, it's probably not going to be something you're going to continue creating content about, or something you care to continue researching or learning more about or whatever. But yeah, on the business side, like if you're just starting a business, there's a lot of other ways to make it happen, and there's a lot of other like kind of side passions, almost like side quests in the journey that you can focus on that might make it more fun for you. Maybe you start a plumbing business out of high school because worked at your dad's friend's plumbing company every summer when you were in high school or college, and now you're gone and you're out of that, and now you want to start a plumbing company. And it's like, well, you don't have to be passionate about plumbing, but maybe you like learning about local SEO on Google, and that becomes what you obsess over in order to drive down your customer acquisition costs. And then all of a sudden you find that you're making real money in the plumbing business, and then you can add in water purification. There's you know what I mean? Like there's things that you can focus on that are kind of verticals within the business itself, because when you're starting it, you're responsible for every aspect of running a business: sales, marketing, operations, like HR, fulfill, like like every single piece of operating business is responsible for all of those things. So maybe in doing that, you're going to find something you really care about, and then sell the plumbing company, and now you start a local SEO marketing agency to help other service-based businesses in local areas learn how to acquire customers the way that you did before you got out of the plumbing business. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat in that sense, in the entrepreneurship world, which is what makes it really cool.
Yeah,
Plus,
and
sorry,
we're,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and for us too, like we're both young guys. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are young people too. And even if you're a little older, like I'm 33 right now. And a lot of times, because whether it's Hollywood or professional athletes or, musicians, artists in general, they tend to be a little bit younger. And we see these like 22-year-olds that are making $100 million.
Yeah.
And it makes us think like, oh my God, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm 27, I'm 28. Why am I not making that much money?
Yeah.
But we forget, in terms of entrepreneurship and being a business leader, like our prime really isn't until we hit our 50s.
Yeah.
Like that's when we really should be hitting at a peak level.
Yeah.
And how can we learn skills and just get singles? Like, sure, there's going to be that one Mark Zuckerberg grand slam that turns into a billionaire in their 20s. But that is like, how many Michael Jordans are there?
Right.
Like,
it's like, yeah, that's what people don't get, man. It's like, there is a major factor of luck and timing in that type of success. The billionaire status, decabillionaire status, there's a major factor of luck and timing that exists in that type of a world in order to be able to propel you into the stratosphere of entrepreneurship. But like you said, there's a lot of singles along the way. and a lot of things that can still allow you to live a really great life in the meantime. It doesn't mean that you have to delay all gratification, go on no trips, not drive the car you want, or live where you want from the time that you're 18 until you finally are in your 50s and can really maximize your earning power. Like hitting a single in entrepreneurship could still be like exiting that business for 1.2 million and your co-founder took half and you had to pay out some employees and an investor and you ended up with 300 grand. It's like, well, hey, that's more than most, 29-year-olds are going to come across when they're 29. So what if we use that, invest it wisely, move on to the next project? There's a lot of wins to happen in the meantime. But that was kind of what I was alluding to before when we were kind of talking over each other for a second. I was going to say the exact same thing, which means we're thinking along the same lines. It's like it's the realization of how long term of a game it is, that along the way, as long as you're having fun doing the thing, you don't have to worry about the outcome or if it ended up all where you wanted it to be, or what the ramifications are if it doesn't. You still got a ton of time. You know what I mean? And if you fail miserably and fall flat on your face and publicly in front of a bunch of people that you respect and admire, it's like, that's a bummer and it doesn't feel good. However, you fast forward enough time, none of that's going to matter in your own lifetime because you're still so early on for the young people that are listening to this. And if you fast forward enough, none of it's going to matter to anyone anyway. Like 300 years from now, anybody listening to this will be long gone. You know what I mean? And like everything that we did, like 98% of the things that we did will be completely forgotten, probably even 100% at that point. So what are you doing this for if you're not doing it for some sort of enjoyment or some sort of fulfillment or meaning? There's something, if there's something like that can keep driving you forward, then you can find the happiness, you can find the joy even in the biggest failures, in the midst of going through them.
Yeah, and if you can show that you can power through those failures with a good attitude, because it's so easy to be chipper and positive and happy and optimistic and all those good things when things are going well.
Oh yeah.
But when shit hits the fan, then what do you like? Then what happens? And like I think about for us, like when we were in the process of selling that first business and things were ugly and looking really grim in a lot of ways, there were investors and close friends and mentors who I look up to who appreciated the way we handled everything. Mm. And now through that process, some of them now become significant customers in my current company and have been like, hey, when you are ready to really take things to the next level, you let me know before anybody else, because I'd be interested in supporting you with whatever that thing is, because I saw when shit hit the fan, you didn't crumble, you didn't turn your back, you didn't start pointing the fingers, you didn't run away, you didn't hide, you faced it, and you were mature and responsible and did the right thing. So when stuff is going bad, if anyone listening can just persevere and have a good spirit through it, I promise you, good people will see that and they'll want to find a way to work with you, because that is a pretty rare character trait. So if you can do that when times are tough, that also will feed into an even brighter future ahead.
Yep, absolutely. Well, dude, Adam, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. Before we go, where can people, learn more about you, follow the stuff that you're working on, or if maybe they fit within your exact target demographic and they need some more calls on the calendar, where can they go to learn more about what you guys do?
Yeah, for anyone who's looking for any type of support with cold email, or if you have any questions, you want to have our free resources, whatever it is, check out our website, eocworks.com. My email is adam@eocworks.com. Feel free to reach out to that. And then on social media, I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram, and it's just at Adam I. Rosen.
At Adam I. Rosen over on Instagram, LinkedIn. Go connect with Adam. Tell him you heard about him here on the show. Adam, thanks so much for doing this, dude. Had a blast chatting with you. Hopefully we'll be able to hang in person sometime.
Absolutely. I'll be looking forward to it. And thanks again for having me on.
All right, man.